everyone. This is Pramod Nair of the Department of English, and here we continue our studies of posthumanism with a more particular focus. We have already studied in quite some detail the theme of posthuman biology and posthuman bodies, right? We have looked at cyborg cultures and cyborgs. We have looked at bioart, which foregrounds the intersection of the organic and the inorganic. We have looked at enhancement, biological as in corporeal and moral. We have also, across the spectrum of posthumanist theories, noted that human biology is not a unique, self-contained, hermetically sealed ecosystem. We have emphasized throughout the fact that human biology is a congeries, an assemblage. We have noted the problems and ethics in enhancing human bodies to perform better, to think better, to become better musicians or mathematicians or whatnot. So, enhancement has been seen also, as we have noted, a way of transcending the limitations of the human biological or corporeal form. Particularly in the case of transhumanists, there is a very strong belief that the human body is a limitation, and that one way around this limitation is to enhance it through technological prostheses, through chemical stimulation, through permanent changes which will be transmitted from generation to generation in the form of genetic manipulation and genetic engineering. The point that the transhumanists make is a fairly simple one. We have evolved, right? Humans have evolved from a very primitive physiological, anatomical form to what we are now. All life has evolved, right? We emerged from the sea, the single-celled organism became a multicellular organism, and so on and so forth. So humanity evolved over several millennia. Humanity evolved because, to adapt a very well-known theory from Darwin and others, nature selects the fittest for survival. And those that are unfitted for nature or do not fit into the natural requirements for survivorship pass away. For transhumanists, the question is, why should we leave it to nature to help us overcome our limitations? Why wait for millennia to become better, to move faster, to think better, to look better, to be more muscular, healthy, with greater powers of the immune system, with greater musical sensitivity, and so on. So for transhumanists, the body is a little bit of a nuisance. It's a little bit of a bother. And that bother must be overcome. So if you were to chat with a transhumanists, they will tell you that there is no need for us to be limited by our bodily structures, by our bodily processes, anatomy, physiology, or whatever it might be. That the ability to evolve into something more, into something better, is something we should harness, as in we should take charge of. So we take charge via technological, pharmacological, genetic, or whatever it might be, technology that you want to enhance ourselves. So the enhanced body is a major posthuman theme. And you do know that in the case of cyborgs, which is the arguably the most popular dimension or aspect of the posthuman as we know it from cyborg films. But we know that there are also problems. And one domain in which this has become so central is posthuman sport. And this has become more prominent with the arrival of figures and sports people like Oscar Pistorius, who is nicknamed Blade Runner, because he doesn't have feet, he has shoes fitted with blades. So he has blades rather than feet. And that's why it's called Blade Runner, which is, of course, a cult film. It has a reboot in the more recent past as well. Athletes with prosthetic limbs have for a very long time competed successfully against quote-unquote normal bodies, against able-bodied athletes. Marcus Wren was called the blade jumper. Lewis Hartle was an equestrian. Neroli Fairhall was the first paraplegic to compete in the Olympic Games in archery, actually. Natalie Dutoil qualified for the finals in the 2002 Commonwealth Games in the 100 meters freestyle. Now, what do these tell us? In all these cases, the athletes have modified their modified bodies with prosthetic limbs, right? Now, the problem has been for, say, the International Association of Athletics Federations. They said the use of any technical device, springs, wheels, or other things, which provides the user with an advantage over another athlete, cannot be used. So if you have an additional device attached to yourself, which gives you an advantage over somebody who doesn't have that device, that's not acceptable. So you cannot use things which give you an advantage over others, which essentially says that humans should remain natural in their competition. But this rule invites two questions. Are athletes enhanced humans when they have prosthetic devices? As in, are they above average humans? Are they humans with an additional advantage of some kind? Did their prostheses give them a clear advantage? We do know now that there is already a commercialized convergence of bodies and technology, right, which work together to enhance performance. And there are new cultures of sport which are inevitable. We know now that there is a field called biomechanics which strives to improve performance through the measurement, modification, and training of athlete bodies. Now, some of you may be aware that people competing at very high levels, athletes and other sports people, have trainers, right? And people who train them. They also use a variety of additional services, whether it is nutrition or clothing or machinery like gym machinery, and those that measure every part of their body's movements, which is basically called biomechanics, right? So we know that the flexing of their muscles, when you throw something, the flexing of your muscle here, the angle of your neck, your shoulders, your body, the pace at which you move, these are measured and these are placed under very rigorous training. So, for example, the athletes who use their shoulders in, say, javelin or archery or shooting or volleyball, they need these segments trained. The footballer has the lower torso focused upon. Their overall physique is also trained. I'm not saying that they are trained in segments, but special attention is given to these. It could be for by way of protecting them from injuries, but it also means that the physiological anatomical feature that contributes most to their participation in the sport must be enhanced. So they may not add anything, they may not have a special device attached to it. But can you say that these are not enhanced bodies? More and more people working with commercialized biomechanics have been speaking about the brave new sport, or future enhancement games, which is about which follows the structure of the Olympic Games, but they have very different rules about the use of technology. Now, we also know something else, and this is something we are all aware of. Personnel competing at very high levels also do a lot of mental conditioning, right? So that they don't give in to pressure, they keep their tempers, they are resilient, they are, to borrow a commonplace word, tough, right? They practice meditation, they practice concentration, they practice whatever is required to strengthen them mentally as well. So focus and determination and intensity of concentration are also worked upon. Now think about this. Are such athletes or sports persons enhanced? Would you call it enhancement if they are not using prosthetic devices like these wires and cables and things, but instead they are just training their bodies and their minds? Would you say they are enhanced? Now, think of the particular moral dilemma, ethical dilemma of this question. We seem to think that enhancement is only when you add chemical nutrients into your body, which is called doping in sports, when you attach things to your body and then run or play basketball or whatever it might be. Is mental conditioning enhancement or not? When you become tougher to compete at high levels, when you become calmer to work at higher levels of competition, is that a form of enhancement? The number of hours that a chess player spends just training their minds to be focused, to remember, to memorize the millions of possible chess moves and moves from history, what, say, Garry Kasparov or Anatoly Karpov did decades ago, to move along similar lines, to move the pieces along similar lines, to strategize. Is that enhancement? Where they're training their minds to pay more attention, to be very decisive in their movements and calculations of strategies. Is that enhancement? So, now, a related question which will come here is, instead of spending so many years of doing meditation and mental concentration exercises and things like that, suppose we were to modify the central nervous system of the chess player, of the very brilliant performer on the cricket or football field. So instead of spending several years of training, getting up at 4 in the morning, practicing various mental and physical exercises for concentration, for bodybuilding, etc., you do your bodybuilding, but you do your mind-building exercises via a modification of your central nervous system. Is that acceptable? Since, please note this, in both cases you are enhancing your mental abilities. One, you are following a rigorous regimen of training for concentration, training for resilience, training to bounce back from bad performances on the field, being tougher on the field, etc., etc. So, in the place of that, you modify your nervous system. What's the difference? Why is practicing dhyan and meditation and yogic practices not deemed to be enhancement techniques, but the pharmacological or technological intervention into your central nervous system deemed to be enhancement? As in, my question, to rephrase it, when you practice several years of consciousness cultivation, concentration techniques, that's deemed to be still natural and not enhancement. But if you modify your nervous system through the injection of chemicals or modification to your nerves, that is deemed to be enhancement. Both have the same consequences, right? So this is where the problem will come. And as you can see from the quotations on the slide for biomechanics, we are beginning to see the change. We have one more instance of how the nature of sport has changed. On the cricket field and in several sports which we watch live, the camera and the television have together altered the nature of our viewing of sports spectatorship, because it takes us into the stadium as if we were there, right? So live telecast means we are there. Now we have instant slow motion replays, we have digital navigation and tracking devices, we have gigantic screens at the venues. Players wear cameras, which means the nature of immersive experience for the spectators has taken us right to the body of the sports person. Right there. Right? You know that the sports person, several of them wear cameras. It's part of their job. So when you are playing, you are also recording. And we have the sports person's record of things. Think of the nature of spectatorship, which has changed so drastically. Right? Amazingly so. Now, if we turn towards augmented reality and digital sports, a whole new cyborg sporting experience exists. Sport has been cyborg for some time now. But we have a problem with doping and gene doping, because there is a binary created between the natural or naturally gifted sports person and the doped or a modified sports person. We deem the doped or modified sports person as not quite nice, as sometimes even evil and villainous, as opposed to the natural sports person, because we believe that the modified enhanced sports person has gained an unfair advantage over the quote-unquote naturally gifted sports person. Now this is where our plot actually thickens, right? If you think of enhanced sporting bodies versus general human enhancements, we go back to the early question. Is our body a limitation to be overcome? Remember, I quoted the transhumanists here for you. The question of enhancing sporting bodies cannot be segregated from larger questions of human enhancement. We cannot say that the problem is only with sporting bodies being enhanced. We have to locate the enhancement of sporting bodies in a context in which all kinds of human enhancements occur now, are available now. Accounting for the fact that these might be expensive, that means there is a class divide as to who can afford it and who cannot. It might create one fresh hierarchy of augmented humans versus unaugmented humans, right? So we keep that in mind. Now, the question is, would it be acceptable if an academic or a researcher opts for enhancement through pharmacological or genetic means to become a better researcher? So suppose I want to enhance the quality of my research, the quality of my writing. Am I allowed to genetically or somatically modify myself, by which I mean bodily, but also mentally, my intellectual abilities? Am I permitted to do that so that the quality of my research goes up, so that the quality of my publications go up? Is that acceptable? Can a musician aim to modify himself or herself to produce better music? Then, of course, should we undertake modifications genetically so that the future generations in my family will also be more advanced? So should a mathematician modify his or her genes or genetic material so that his or her progeny will also be brilliant scientists and mathematicians and Einsteins? Or should we say that's not possible? If we say that these are not permissible, then the question is, why not? Let's also ask a more basic question. Is the skill that you see in Usain Bolt or Roger Federer or Messi or Ronaldo remotely human? The way they play, the way they run, does it look human to you? Now, are they enhanced? You say, no, they're natural because they don't use any prosthetic materials, pharmacological and otherwise. but they train. They train for years. They train for decades, and they train every day of their lives, right? They practice mental and physical endurance measures, concentration measures. They're not enhanced, is it? How can you say that? So, if these people can train for 15 years to become superstars, high performance athletes and sports people, why should a musician not do that? Why should an academic like me not seek enhancement of my abilities? And why is it not acceptable then? As people like Andy Mayer have noted, gene doping raises the question to another level. We ask, is bodily modification less dangerous or more dangerous than genetic modification? Is any form of gene modification for enhancing ethically acceptable or not? Now, education is also a form of enhancement, isn't it? It enables you to develop more skills. From childhood, you learn to use numbers, to use alphabets, to use various devices. This current generation of school-going children learn to use the iPad and the phone and various digital resources at a very early age. Is education not a method or a technology of enhancement? It is. It's most certainly so. So, think of diets, medical care, and training facilities which produce high-performance athletes, right? The kind of training centers, and you know, when you read about sports people from the global south complaining that their training facilities are not good enough for them to compete at, say, the Olympic levels. What are they saying? They're saying that they do not have the dietary, the physical infrastructure around them, the devices from clothing to running surfaces on par with that of the first world, right? When the first world athlete has superior diet, excellent medical care, and brilliant training facilities, do we think of sports as a level playing field? It most certainly is not a level playing field, isn't it? That people who have better training facilities are actually doing a better job because of those training facilities, not because they are naturally brilliant athletes. I'm not denying the fact that they have talent, but the talent is nurtured in a setting which enhances that talent into supreme quality performance, which people with the same amount of talent from the global south may not have. Which means if two people have the same brilliant skills at football or cricket, the person with the better training facilities, with the better kind of diet and medical care will perform better than the person who doesn't. So when we say natural athletes and it should be a level and democratic and fair system, sports is not so. We do understand that. Which also means that we do not really have a consensus on what natural is, what we understand by the term natural. Bodies are shaped, trained, fed, medically cared for in terms of the gait, the posture, the eating habits, manners, and skills through cultural training, right? All of us have been modified from the moment of our birth, and mostly even before that. So, we have no such thing as a natural body. They've all been modified. Then why do we expect sporting bodies to be natural? What we need urgently is a review of what we understand as social enhancement, the social value of enhancement. Enhancement is, after all, a model of development. If all-round development of the human and the collective can be achieved by genetic modification, why not? As in, if by enhancing bodies for generations to come, we can transform the society itself into something else, into a better class of people, into a better world. What's wrong with that? And I recommend that you take a close look at Francesca Ferrando's lessons on moral enhancement for this particular purpose. Commentators like Alan Buchanan have argued that if human excellence and productivity can be enhanced, then perhaps it should be a government enterprise. If the enhancement of certain skills is much desired, then why not sporting skills? if you can improve compassion, mathematical reasoning, appreciation of music, empathy, why not enhance sporting skills? Would it make us less human? Why do we assume that sports should remain pure when other forms of enhancement might be more acceptable? The point is also, which values do we want enhanced? Which qualities are more culturally acceptable or valued? So, if we believe that humans can be enhanced for better compassion, altruism, or mathematical abilities, then why would we object to faster and higher and better athletes? So, as you can see, this is a very difficult debate. If education is a form of enhancement, then why not replace it with injections or genetic modifications? Education is also a form of enhancement. If education is a form of enhancement that is acceptable, why not enhancement in sports? If you believe that you can enhance musicians to produce better music, novelists who can produce better novels, academics who can produce better research, then why should we not produce athletes who can produce better performances? The question, like I said a few minutes ago, is which cultural traits do we value? Which cultural features do we prefer? So altruism and compassion. Moral enhancement debates would go with that if you are able to produce more compassionate human beings, that's acceptable. Well, if you can produce more compassionate human beings, what prevents us from producing more musically minded people, better musicians, and of course, better sportsmen? That is the question. Thank you.